Well, hi, Brad. It's so good to have a few minutes with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time to talk to you.
Well, so the purpose of this video is to give our website visitors a little bit more information about you and your firm and what kind of work you do on behalf of insurance consumers. So you've been a very good friend to our organization. You've volunteered. You've helped us after disasters in your state. You've helped us write friend of the court briefs in where we're trying to influence the law favorably for consumers. And you're considered, I know, to be a leader in the state of Colorado in policyholder representation. So tell me, how did you get into the business of counseling and representing clients in insurance matters?
Well, it actually, my history goes 40 years. I've been practicing now for 40 years. And when I first started practicing in California, I was working at a firm that was representing the insurance carriers in insurance coverage, insurance bad faith matters. I moved back to Denver. I'm from Colorado, and I moved back after working there for 3 years at that firm. And since I came back, I gradually, I'd been with a couple of firms doing commercial work and so on, but basically got back into, if you will, the insurance business, but on the policyholder side. And like I said, it's been an evolution, but having that background of representing insurance carriers, that's something that really has steadied me over the course of the years, because knowing and understanding how it is the insurance companies operate has helped to for me in representing policyholders.
Absolutely. Understanding how insurance companies make decisions and how they um, view the strength or weaknesses of people's claims when there's a dispute. Very, very helpful, I'm sure,
Yep.
to you. So tell me, what types of insurance matters does your firm handle?
Everything. Every type of insurance policy that's out there, ranging from first-party policies, coverages for anything from under homeowners policies, under business policies. So we're handling first-party claims also, if it's disability insurance, if it's health insurance, whatever it may be. So we handle first-party claims as well as third-party matters involving liability claims.
So
Again,
somebody gets sued for something and then turns to their insurance company to provide them with a lawyer and a defense. You handle those kind of matters?
well, yeah, and we actually are not actually representing, folks. Of course, if you turn it in, if you get sued and you turn in your insurance carrier, usually the insurance carrier is going to find somebody to represent them, and that's not what we do. We're not doing that. We actually are often called to do personal counsel representation. In other words, if the insurance company has hired somebody, but the insurance company, for example, is not making appropriate efforts to try to get the case settled, that we will step in on behalf of the policyholder to urge the insurance company to settle the case. If they don't, and if there's potential claim for bad faith, we will prosecute that case against the insurance carrier if they haven't, or if they haven't defended. If you tender the case to the insurance company has refused to defend when they should be, again, we'll represent the policyholder against the insurance carrier based upon a breach of the duty to defend. So, like I say, at the end of the day, we represent folks in every type of insurance dispute.
Great. Including employer provided insurance, ERISA?
Yeah, we do ERISA work. It's, as I think folks know, I mean, it's tough. There are a number of barriers there with respect to ERISA-related claims, but in the right cases, the right instances, yes, we do that. And we handle, for example, in the disability area, very often people have got disability policies through their employer, and we handle that as well. We handle ERISA-related matters through, for disability insurance, life insurance, other kinds of employee benefits.
Okay, great. So you mentioned bad faith, and I think that a lot of people have heard that term, or people who have a loss and maybe come to visit our website to try to get informed and understand what their rights are with their insurance. They may hear the phrase bad faith thrown around. I think some people don't really understand what it means. So can you just kind of give like the layperson's explanation of
Yeah,
what is bad faith and how does it um, come into play in the work that you do?
sure. Amy, and obviously, I could, this could be a sort of a separate seminar for, quite some time talking about the various ins and outs of what bad faith constitutes. But just in general, what it is that when you buy a policy of insurance, and it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter who's purchasing it. It can be an individual, a company. You're in exchange for the premium that you're paying for that. What you're getting is security and peace of mind, knowing that if there's some calamity, something that happens that triggers the responsibility of the insurance company to pay, the insurance company is going to be there. That's sort of it's sort of the trade-off. You're paying money right now for something that's going to happen in the future. And what the courts have recognized is that because of that, that relationship that's formed, that there are special duties that are owed by the insurance company towards the policyholder. They're called duties of good faith and fair dealing. And it means just that. They have to deal fairly with you and in good faith. And they have to act reasonably. And it's how an insurance company, it's measured against how an insurance company should act under the circumstances a reasonable insurance company should act. And if the insurance company doesn't diverges from that, if it doesn't act in conformance with those duties of good faith and fair dealing, that's considered to be bad faith. And what that means is that the policyholder has rights against the insurance company for whatever kinds of injuries, whatever kinds of damages arise from the failure by the insurance company to do what they're supposed to abide by the promise that they provided to you. And it's not just what's in the contract, not just what's written in the insurance contract, but when you talk about the duty, good faith, and fair dealing, it's basically something that's implied in the contract. In other words, it's something, they've got certain obligations to communicate, to reasonably evaluate a claim, to settle a claim, and so on. So there are a number of responsibilities that aren't written into the contract per se, but that the courts enforce as implied obligations under the contract.
So in the state of Colorado, if you're a consumer who has been wronged by an insurance company in some way, then you may, depending on the facts and circumstances, have a claim for bad faith, right? Where you can actually, in the lawsuit that you file against the insurance company to get them to straighten up and fly right and do right by you, you can actually say the insurance committee, you can say the insurance company acted in bad faith. And what does that mean in a lawsuit, just in terms of money? Does that mean that
Sure.
you can get more money from the insurer than the actual amount of the contract, what they owed you?
Yes. So what it means is that you've got a potential claim for breach of the contract, the provisions in the contract. In addition to that, you've got these what are called extra contractual responsibilities, and therefore you can get remedies that would be, for example, for emotional distress that's caused to you because you've had to, endure, because of the company's behavior that they haven't been there for you. So you've got emotional distress. If there's financial distress that's been caused to you as a consequence of the insurance company's conduct, you can recover for that. And the other thing is that in Colorado, we've got a statute that was passed back in 2008. It's called the Insurance Bad Faith Statute that provides for additional remedies, if you will, if the insurance company has either delayed or denied benefits without a reasonable basis. You have the potential for getting double damages, which the courts have said you're basically taking the amount they should have paid, and you get, in addition to that, 2 times the amount of benefit that was denied to you, plus attorney's fees. In other words, the amount of the attorney's fees that you incur in having to prosecute a claim against the insurance carrier. So that puts teeth, if you will, behind the promises that the insurance company has made. And if there's a failure by the insurance company to abide by the contract and do what it's supposed to do, there's some real teeth to it in Colorado.
So, then under what circumstances can a client hire you on a contingent fee basis, meaning like not have to pay you by the hour, but sort of betting on the come, and then your fee being a percentage of what you recover for the person from the insurance company on their behalf?
Yeah, when we talk to a client, we give them options as far as how they want to pay for the services. One possibility, as you mentioned, is to pay us on an hourly basis to prosecute the claim. The problem, of course, is that if you're, particularly if you're going to get into litigation, it looks like the litigation is going to be extended. It can get to be very, very expensive. Not just for the cost for expert witnesses and for depositions and so on, but just for the time that we have to put into it. And if you're going to pay us by the hour, like I say, it can get to be a pretty hefty bill, and we recognize that. So we are very open in appropriate cases to representing folks on a contingent fee basis, which, as you say, we recover based upon a percentage of the amount that we recover on behalf of the client. So we don't get paid unless the client gets paid. And again, by way of either a settlement or a judgment in the case, whatever that amount is, we get a percentage of that. So, we're basically assuming a risk along with the client in going forward with the case. And if it's something which we think is a good and a viable case, we will absolutely, go forward on a contingent fee basis if that's what the client wants.
Well, as you know, I'm a insurance consumer advocate and a lawyer. So, I believe deep in my heart that the ability to hire a lawyer like you on contingency is a really important consumer protection, right? It's the keys to the courthouse for the average person who can't pay by the hour. And also because insurance companies are so resourced, they have armies of lawyers, and they have very substantial funds in order to fight. In fact, it often feels like they spend more fighting an insured sometimes than they would if they just paid the claim. But anyway, that's another story. So contingent fee arrangements, of course, I think are extremely beneficial to the consumer in most situations. So it's great to know that your firm will do that. Not all firms do that. I know that, right? I know that many firms don't want to kind of take that risk. So it's really great that you guys do that. Do you have a minimum amount in dispute that that you'll take as a case?
No, I mean, we look at each case individually, look at the circumstances of the case. And, obviously, if we're going to be taking the risk that I was talking about, it needs to be a risk that has value to it. For us, again, we don't want to be spending our firm's time and effort prosecuting a case where the upside is not going to be, is not going to merit our taking on the case. The fact, and I made mention, of course, a few minutes ago about this statute in Colorado. And as I say, under that statute, if there's unreasonable conduct, that the attorney's fees is one of the penalties, if you will, that the insurance company has. So in view of that statute, and by the way, our firm actually helped to get that statute passed in our state. And, the whole purpose behind it was to make it was basically to incentivize lawyers to take on cases where, otherwise it might be difficult because of the amount of controversy just wouldn't warrant going forward. So it was, like I say, to incentivize lawyers to do just that. And we recognize that. And because of that, we are, that much more open, if you will, to taking on cases, even if they're not, gazillions of dollars, but we recognize that there are matters, and sometimes, very frankly, Amy, there's sometimes matters that we take on simply, if you will, that they're righteous causes, that even if the dollars and cents may not warrant it, we take it on because it's just the right thing to do, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I think I met you when we were working together in 2013 on homeowners insurance, a reform legislation to give Colorado residents more rights, stronger rights with regard to homeowners insurance, because we were working together on helping people recover from wildfires. I think you've been very involved in the efforts to get more reforms in the legislature that are just awaiting the governor's signature right now. What motivates you to get involved in legislative matters? It seems
Just
like you don't
exactly,
get
yeah.
paid for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really does have to do with, I think that, I think it's lawyers' responsibility, certainly the way that we perceive things at our law firm is that, we want to advance the law, on behalf of everybody, not just our, particular clients, right? And so, there are ways to do just that. Some of the things that you've already mentioned, not just simply legislation, which is very important because obviously that's protective of everybody in my state, but also you talk about, for example, we've been very active in writing amicus briefs, friends of the courts briefs over the course of the years. And again, that's not something, and we're not representing the client in the particular case, but because the issue is something which is just so important to advance the law on behalf of policyholders, we get involved in doing that. And, our firm is well known for, taking cases, not just through the trial process, but we handle a number of cases all the way through the Court of Appeals, and have frankly been very involved in establishing some important precedents in the Colorado Supreme Court. Again, we'd like to say that we are doing what we can to try to advance the law and to be protective of policyholders in the courts. So it's sort of a multi-front, if you will, approach to protecting policyholders.
Yeah, I mean, I think of your firm as being pretty a very sort of all in on advancing the interests of insurance consumers. And of course, our organization benefits from that because you guys are so generous in volunteering for our clinics and our and doing things without compensation. And I know that sort of always speaks very loudly to me about the conviction that you bring to getting good results for your clients. So we appreciate that at United Policyholders. But obviously, you cannot take every case that comes your way. You have to be businesslike. Tell me, what do you find most challenging about doing battle with insurance companies in the modern litigation system?
Well, I'd say, certainly the challenges are always there. One of the things that you alluded to a few minutes ago, obviously, the insurance carriers have got, vast resources, right? And that they can throw up, again, whatever the venue is, it's what, we've encountered dealing on the legislative level, right? I mean, you have lobbyists, you have got people who are always, going to be pushing back. They're well-heeled, well-funded, and very protective, obviously, of their interests. And so, engaging in that battle is one which is always challenging. And that's not just in the legislature, obviously, but in the courts as well. They have, again, number of law firms, people who are, the people here in Colorado, the lawyers who represent insurance carriers are formidable. They really are. I mean, they really, they've got, the bar is high. I'd like to say in that regard, I actually was the first president of the insurance committee of the Colorado Bar Association that was established 2 years ago. And what it's about is sort of bringing together folks from both sides of the aisle, if you will, both on the insurance and the policyholder side to deal with the issues of common interest and to promote professionalism. So, we, certainly very much value our relationships with, lawyers on behalf of the insurance carriers. And so that's very rewarding. But when you talk about, whatever kinds of challenges, they're there. And, and you're always feeling as though you're sort of bucking sort of the system in a sense that, the courts, the judges, people, there's certainly a trend to want to maintain the status quo. And if what you're trying to do is to upend that status, it takes time. And, I don't mean that it's like trying to move the Titanic, but it is, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. And we like to think that we're engaged in that process for the long term, and we see it like that.
Yeah. Well, so so then, the United Policyholders, we're a resource, a voice, information resource. And, very often we'll go in, and when there's been a disaster, we bring our roadmap to recovery program in and we educate people and we say, well, let's dig in, let's help you read your policy, figure out what you're entitled to. And we'll say, you already paid for coverage, you paid for the financial protection, and you paid for good claim service. Like, you also paid so that the insurance company would treat you fairly and would investigate your claim and would make you a fair settlement and in a timely manner and all that. But because that, and we hope that happens, we always have to say that, and we believe that, of course, it's the best scenario is when insurance works and the claim gets paid and the person gets the money they need to try to, restore their pre-loss situation, right? That's the ideal. We all want to believe it. And sometimes it does happen. Of course, it does happen a lot. But the times where it doesn't happen, where the consumer doesn't get what they expect and what they're entitled to, that's when they need help. And, we have sort of we have a kind of a sequence, we say, well, self-help first, and, free help from the government if you can get help from the Department of Insurance second, and then professional help, which can either include a public adjuster or an attorney. And so, a lot of people will ask us, well, gosh, a lawsuit, like, oh, after everything I've been through. And we will say, it's been our experience that if you hire a good lawyer on a contingent fee basis, the lawyers are the ones doing all the work. Maybe you have to sit for a deposition, you have to produce documents, but I mean, it's really your lawyers that end up doing all the work. And the key to it, of course, is patience, right? Because as you said, suing an insurance company triggers a process, right? It's a process on the insurance company's side. It's a process in litigation. So in terms of like, if somebody comes to you and they have felt they've been wronged by their insurance company, and you review it and it looks to you like they have a very strong case and it's something that you feel like you would be able to take on, can you kind of give and I'm sure people ask you this all the time, how long is it going to take to get this thing resolved? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, it's really good question, Amy. A couple things. I mean, and just, as a prelude to what it is that you were talking about is very consistent with the advice that we give. I mean, we often, people contact us and we make a judgment call every single time as to whether or not, the advice is, hey, as you say, go at it alone, see what happens. If it's a matter involving the division of insurance or, writing it on to the insurance company, sometimes, when they've asked us to, we've reviewed, sometimes we've ghostwritten, if you will, on behalf of folks when they're contacting or in touch with the insurance carrier. And then sometimes if they want to hire us, it might not be litigation. It may be the better part of valor, at least, is to write a letter with the lawyer's letterhead and to see whether or not that's going to have any, value in terms of promoting the interests of the policyholder and getting them paid, right? So, we will talk that through in terms of, hey, this may make some sense, but sometimes we look at it and say, the letter writing's done, it's not going to be effective, and really the only option you have at this juncture, if you want us to pursue it, is to go through the litigation route. And as you say, you're absolutely right, Amy. The problem, if you will, in terms of the litigation process, is that it takes time. And one of the other things, and I just have to tell you, one of the things we tell our clients is that anytime you engage in litigation, you're always living in the past. It's always retrospective. You're not able, if one of your aims is to move on, to put something behind you, litigation is not the way to do it, because again, it necessarily, you're always looking at what happened in the past. But if you want to take it on and you go through the litigation process, you got to know that the time, as you say, we try to give our best estimates, but it can take from the time we file a lawsuit to the time that if you're going to trial, and of course, just like most other cases, these cases settle. right? I mean,
Mhm.
95, 96% of the cases settle, but it may take quite some time. I mean, you may have to go through, as you mentioned, the deposition process, the expert process, and so on before the insurance company comes to the table and is willing to pay the kind of money that a case is worth. But if you have to go to a trial from the time you file a complaint, it could be anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years before you get to the courthouse. And part of it is that, and this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but I'd rather be litigating cases for reasons, but the insurance companies would rather put us through federal court. And so, as I've told folks, I end up in federal court involuntarily on most of my cases, and that's because, again, the insurance companies have the right to be there under what's called diversity of citizenship, and end up litigating. And unfortunately, when we're in federal court for a number of different reasons, structural reasons, and so on, it takes longer to get cases through the system than through the state court system. So yeah, you're looking at a year and a half, 2 years before you potentially get to trial.
And yet some cases settle probably like much more quickly, but you cannot predict and you can't promise.
Cannot, exactly right.
Right, right,
Exactly
right. Well, Brad, this has been great to have some time with you. The strength that you and your firm bring are so important to the residents of your state, because you're part of what's helping keep some balance in a system that is surprisingly important in people's lives. People don't like to think about insurance, and then they don't think about it until something bad happens, and then think that, okay, well, I have insurance, I'm going to be okay. And I think a lot of your job is to try to make that be true, right? That, oh, you had insurance, so you should be all right. But sometimes that is a battle and a journey. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the consumers we serve for being a resource that people can go to, as the little guy, against a really, really powerful industry. So I guess I just want to wrap up by saying, what's keeping you up at night in terms of trends that you're seeing in insurance matters?
I got to tell you, I think it's really just sort of the consistent, if you will, onslaught, if you will, of if you will, the disasters, the things, what's going to, how are people going to be next affected, right? I mean, you alluded to the fact, we obviously had this disaster that happened at the end of 2021 here in Colorado with the Marshall Fire, and over 1,000 folks, their homes were destroyed. And when you have those kinds of things happen, and the calls that we've had, the discussions we've had, and by the way, I mean, I just shout out obviously United Policyholders. I mean, the information and everything that you do is just so helpful, so tremendous. It's a tremendous service for consumers, and certainly true in the state of Colorado. But what keeps me up at night is just knowing how it is that people are affected by these kinds of incidents, and making sure that they are protected, and that their rights are being protected, and trying to help them solve problems. I mean, again, as we know, the consequence of this fire there's a problem that is an endemic problem, and the underbelly is there, and that has to do with underinsurance. And what's happened is that this fire and the results and the consequences of that fire from an insurance standpoint have really revealed that we have this tremendous problem with homes being underinsured, and you don't know about it, as you say. You don't know about it until you have to call on it.
Yep.
And so, those are the kinds of things in terms of trying to strategize, trying to figure out how are we best going to help folks, hopefully, to try to head things off before the disaster happens, right? And that's one of the things that, again, United Policyholders has been working so diligently with the legislature and with the governor's office and with the insurance commissioner's office to try to head off these problems before they arise, so that when you have the disaster happen, that the insurance is going to be there on people's behalf. And so, those are the kinds of issues that, as you say, keep me up.
Well, this has been great. I'm sure we could talk about underinsurance for another hour. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for supporting United Policyholders. We're so proud to have you in our Find Help directory and have you as a platinum level sponsor. So, stay healthy and keep doing the good work you do with your partners and your team. We appreciate it very much. Thanks for your
Thank you.
time, Brad.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate it very much.